And Edgar Casey's foundation down in Virginia is making huge amounts of huge fortunes off these books. In fact, one of the books I was showing last night, I found out, was one of Edgar Casey's foundation's books. The book on the comets was written by his people. So,
When the Comet Runs?
Right, When the Comet Runs was written by ARE organization, which is the Casey Foundation in Virginia. So these people are making tons and tons and tons of money off esoteric knowledge that we had millions of years ago. Millions of years ago. Because that so-called Acacia, that universal record, that universal file was something we knew of thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. And you go to places like Abydos, you go to the Great Pyramids, all you got to do is study those walls over there. Study those walls and those monuments, and you'll see all this stuff written on the walls. It's right there for you to see, in stone. That's why they put it on the stone, so that you could go there thousands of years later and see it for yourself. All you got to do is interpret it. So, the Acacia is something that's very real. It's not something that was discovered by no white boy in the 1930s, okay? Just like steel is not something that the crackers discovered in the 1850s. I said before, the steel was something we had 20,000 years ago in South Africa. And if any of y'all was at any of the other previous lectures, you would know that, you know, only now are the crackers finally beginning to admit that it's undeniable that Africans were smelting steel 20,000 years ago. They got the furnaces. They done dug them up over there in South Africa, and Zimbabwe, and Namibia. They done dug them up. Irrefutable proof that we at least 20,000 years ahead of these people. So anybody want to tell me, you know, that there's spaceships and rockets and all that other stuff represent the future, I would say that represents the past. Because like Bobby said, we don't need spaceships to go where we going in the Dogon and prove that. Because when the crackers ran over there and got with the Dogon and found out that the Dogon had been to Sirius, it shocked the hell out of them to find out you got a bunch of Africans that talking about having direct contact with people that live 5 light years away from here. So how do you do that? How do you go to a place like Malawi and talk to people that go to work through portals? Some of y'all heard that before. You know, where we had the brother that came back from South Africa and he said he had a deep discussion with the brother. Said he goes to work in one country and comes back at night from another country. A couple 100 miles every single day. No buses, no trains, no planes. The mind. The black dot. See, these are sciences that we have at our disposal. How is it that people can go down to Jamaica and find people who walk through walls in Jamaica? How is that possible? Well, we say, okay, that's stuff that's supposed to be relegated to science fiction, but yet there's all kind of scientists running around from Harvard and Yale and Columbia and Stanford, all through them little islands trying to figure out who these people are. You know, these old beer men, who are they? What are they? They're writing books now about that. There was a time when they never wrote books about those people. Those shamans and those medicine men down in the islands. Now all of a sudden they're writing books about this stuff. So they get people out of Harvard University and they send them down to Haiti and dig around trying to find out the secrets of voodoo. You know, so while they're laughing at us and saying these ain't nothing but a bunch of voodoo spooks, they got the top scientists in the country running all over those places trying to find out those secrets and bringing them back here. That's why I say when you see the crackers smile, you better know something's wrong. When you see them frown, clap. But what I want to do tonight is to get into some practical applications of the information that I was discussing last night and in some of the previous lectures. Most of y'all have, at least some of y'all have the previous lectures. How many of y'all have lecture tapes from previous sessions? Okay, if you don't have the lecture tapes from the previous sessions or yesterday's sessions, those are the tapes to be available from Bert. We have some audio tapes available from some of those previous sessions. So if you either want the audio tapes or video tapes, they're available here. And if you need to get in contact with me directly in Philadelphia, my phone number. That's my phone number in Philadelphia if you need it. All right? Area code 215-235-9079. okay? Because I know people have been asking for some information on the tapes and some of the printed material. We are going to be coming out with some printed material next month. And I think we're probably going to be back here at the end of next month. So we can, if you need more details on that, I would suggest you get with Bert, or also you can get in direct contact with us. And we'll deal with that. Because we're going to be in, we're going to be hopscotching around several different spots. Some of the stuff is getting so hot that it's getting a little bit difficult to handle the requests, because, you know, there's people from Delaware and Georgia and Arizona and where else? There's a couple other places that's trying to get me on planes to get this information, because people are really scared of this stuff we're held by. In particular, you know, these whites really did a very, very good job spooking the hell out of people about this comet, you know. And this is why, like I said yesterday, they got this whole flood. How many people were here yesterday? Again, okay. Yesterday I was talking about how, you know, the government and some other related agencies are really burning the midnight oil to pump out a whole series of assembly line style flicks in both Hollywood and on the TV about comets and asteroids and meteors and all this wild stuff that's coming here to do damage. You know, so some of y'all have seen Asteroid, for example, the miniseries that NBC put out last week. There's going to be a CBS series very similar that's going to be out in about 2 weeks. ABC is doing a piece very similar in about the same time. So they're all beating each other up now, trying to get, you know, on the fast track to the disaster flicks involving stellar bodies. So Hollywood and the government is all cashing in right about now. These networks are all cashing in because this is big stuff now, you know, in terms of cash, you know. So at the same time that they're digging in your pockets to take that money out of you so that they can do whatever, the government is being serviced and dealt with in terms of issuing out the fear element. See, that fear element is very important to them, because they can't operate unless you're scared, all right? That's the way the government functions in this country. So...
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Bert, I got about, what, 45 minutes?
16. On this tape.
Oh, don't say that. I know I run my mouth fast, but I didn't know I ran it that fast. Woo! Man. Yeah, hey, real quantum there. But what I want to do first, I want to talk a little bit. A brother was here in New York at the lecture we did at Rabbi's store on Nostrand in Brooklyn. The brother asked a very significant question about herbs. And he said, what is the relationship between survivability, you know, our survival and herbs? I didn't realize until I got Shaw, you had the book Pyramid Energy?
Oh, no.
Anybody in here got that book, Pyramid Energy? Somebody in here got that. Anybody got it with them? Anybody got the book, Pyramid Energy? I need to see that book for a second. Can somebody bring that up here? Thank you. We'll get it right back to you. If I forget, then you can blame me for it. We'll get it back. Okay, I was talking about yesterday. This is a very good book. You need to get this book, Pyramid Energy. I had to thank Sister Myra and Brother Clive and Brother Blase over here for getting me this book. I never knew this book existed until just a couple weeks ago. It's a fascinating study into pyramid energies, okay, written by two sets of white people, one from Canada, one from the States. And they went over to Egypt, spent a lot of time over there, spent a lot of time in India. One thing I give these white folks credit for is that they do the research, they do the homework, okay? And they did the homework on the pyramids and on some of the energies. And they came up with this book called Pyramid Energy, okay, by the Hardy family and the Killick family. The Hardys and the Killicks, okay? And this is written by Delta K Products books. And you can get this book here from this brother here, Blase. he has the book available. Okay, so just get, that's the brother selling the books over here. Just get with him and get this book and read it, because there's a lot of secrets in this book. And I was kind of bored with the first half of it, and I thought it was just a standard, routine, regular book that dealt with pyramid energies. But then I stumbled across something in the middle of the book where they started talking about the Nazis. And I thought it was a fascinating discussion, because they talked about this guy named Victor Schauberger, who was one of the chief Nazi scientists who was working on future sciences for the Nazis, because the Nazis were in such a desperate rush to win the war in 1945, because all the top generals had told Hitler that he was going to lose the war unless he came up with a Hail Mary trick. Okay? So by the winter of 1945, going into 1945, after the Battle of the Balls, that was pretty much the writing on the wall for Hitler. So he said, look, you guys got to come up with something big. So they went and got this guy, Victor Schauberger, who to everybody else was just a regular nut scientist. But Hitler's people had took this guy down to a guy named Pimminjohn, where they was working on these V2 rockets. And they found out that this guy knew certain secrets about the flow of water and certain secrets about the way the trees grow. And the way that he studied this stuff, he was able to deduce the theory of anti-gravity. He's not the only one that was able to do that. And as a result of that, he was able to produce some spaceships. How many of y'all knew that Hitler had spaceships? All right, for those of y'all who didn't know that, I'm not crazy. Some of y'all think I'm nuts. When me and Bobby and people like us stand up in places like this and talk this stuff, please don't think we're nuts, because I don't like to say stuff unless I got something to back it up. Well, this is only one of the books that talks about some of those theories that Schauberger had back in 1945, where Hitler's boys had went to this nut professor in the backwoods somewhere, and they said, look, we heard you talking about this stuff, anti-gravity. What are you talking about? You're talking about trees and water and anti-gravity. Well, try to make it in some kind of sense that we can win the war. Nix all that technical stuff, just get something together quick, because we only got a couple months left. So Victor Schauberger was taken to Pimminjohn, where they was working all these slaves, these Jewish and Polish and Russian and North African slaves too they had up there, okay, building these V2 rockets. And Schauberger said, look, he said, you people are crazy because you're putting all this fuel inside these rockets and you're using all this propulsion to lift these things up off the ground and fling them over to England. He said, you're wasting a lot of time doing that stuff. He said, all you need to do is study the earth. He said, common sense should be able to tell you to study the earth, and if you study the earth long enough, you'll find out that the trees and the water can do your work for you. All that stuff that you put in a propulsion system, you can do just as easily by just watching the natural currents of the earth. So after they took this guy back to Berlin and they studied him for a little bit, okay, they found out that he could make a scale model, a model of a flying saucer about that big. And they said, okay, if you can prove that you can levitate that little toy, then we'll give you whatever you want. Okay, so he went over to back to Pimminjohn, and he made a flying saucer about as big as this room, and he made the thing levitate. Anti-gravity is nothing but levitation. In other words, you remove the resistance. You reverse the flow, okay, the electromagnetic flow, and by reversing electromagnetic flow, you produce anti-gravity, okay, or antimatter. And what that does is it makes any object levitate, okay? And by levitation, that means you can make it move. You can make it rise, okay? So Hitler started mass producing flying saucers in the spring of 1945, and he came that close to winning the war, because he had already built about 3 or 4 dozen of these ships in Germany at these slave camps, and he was just about ready to put them things in operation. In fact, they had already did test runs on them, because the Air Force, the British and the American Air Force, called them Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters. Okay, they didn't have any name for them. UFO hadn't been invented yet, so they called them Foo Fighters. In other words, what they thought was apparitions, was knocking down some of their planes. At the same time, they were sending more and more of these rockets over to England. That was a ruse or a fake plan that Hitler was using to keep the concentration off his flying saucer program. So at the same time he was bombing London with these V2 rockets, V1 and V2 rockets, he had these people mass producing these flying saucers underneath the ground, underneath the direction of this guy Victor Schauberger, okay, because he was going to surprise the Allies with a fleet, a mass fleet of flying saucers, which was going to destroy the whole Allied Air Force. It just so happened that the Allies got into the secret chambers. They got into Berlin, and they got into the secret chambers right smack in the nick of time, because it was only weeks after that they were supposed to launch these ships against the Allies. And what the Allies found blew their minds, because they found out that these ships could not only levitate, but they could actually fly 2,000 or 3,000 miles an hour, because there's no resistance, no gravity involved with these ships. And because they could move so fast, they could get displaced in time. Because when you move at a certain speed in time, you enter what they call wormhole. And by entering the wormhole, you can go anywhere you want in time or space to matter. And that's why they found that as a result of that time and space and matter really don't exist. So Einstein and Tesla and all these wacko scientists they had was all rewriting all their theories, and that's why Hitler threw all his notes, Einstein threw all his notes away and came up with a whole new theory about time bending. Okay, it wasn't linear, as they had said before, it bends. And it was the principle of bending which permitted them to violate the theory of gravity and go into anti-gravity and produce any kind of ships they wanted to produce. Okay? But since that time, they have also done a lot of research, as Bobby said, into the Dogon. There's a tremendous amount of research going into the Dogon right now. Because even though these people have been able to use these sciences that they got from these nutty professors to mass produce all kinds of flying saucers now that they have at their disposal. Now they have them as big as Giant Stadium. They got 4 of them. They got 4 of them. I know for according to the internet, one is called the Excelsior and the other is called the Concorde, and I don't know the names of the other 2 because they didn't put that in the internet yet. But the internet explains the size, the shape, the weight of these ships, where they're being made. They're being made at Groom Lake over there in Nevada, Delsey Base, okay, where they made the Aurora and all these top secret aircraft. Well, now they're over there doing the same thing Hitler was doing. They're mass producing these ships over there. These are not UFO ships. These are USAF ships. Okay? And Art Bell even talked about it one night on his radio show, because he said he's seen them. He said he lives in Nevada, in the desert, and he said he was walking around his little ranch out there in the boonies one day, and all of a sudden, the stars disappeared. And he couldn't figure out why the stars had disappeared. And he looked up and he happened to notice that the stars had only disappeared in a triangular fashion. So when he looked again, he happened to notice that this triangular thing was moving very, very slowly right over top of him. And when he got a really good look at it, because there was lights around the edge of it, he saw that this thing was about as big as Giant Stadium, and it scared the living hell out of him. He said he was almost paralyzed, you know, for a long period of time before he could even pick himself up off the ground. And he talks about this very open on his radio show. He's talked about it 2 or 3 times on his radio show. Okay? But what Art Bell then said at the time was that those are United States Air Force ships. And the internet has the manifest. The crews of those ships are listed in the internet. So all you got to do is call me and I give you the manifest. Some of the crews are mixed, black, white, Asian, Latinos, you know, equal opportunity employer, USAF, and flying saucers. And they can use these things pretty much go wherever they want. But one of the problems they have with all this stuff is that the Dogon have been able to demonstrate to some of their scientists that they don't need the ships, like Bobby said. As sophisticated as their ships are in terms of going to any planet in the solar system they want to go to, they've discovered to their horror that the Dogon and now some other peoples don't need the ships to go to Sirius 5 light years away. They've been there plenty of times. And Nomo came back with them. That's how Nomo got here. Nomo came back with them. And they share the science between these people from Sirius and us, because that's where we come from. Okay? And that's why they're having such a difficulty trying to figure out how to wipe us out. Because they know that we are not a race of humans. We are a race of superhumans. We are a superhuman race. And they're having a lot of difficulty with that. Okay? But I want to get back to the herbs. You save your questions for later, like Bobby said. But I want to get back to these herbs because there are certain types of things we're going to need. There's two levels of survival that are going on here. First is the physical thing. If you're concerned about the physical thing, okay, then we'll discuss that. Because most of us, because we're mundane oriented, and because we're Western oriented on top of that, we're concerned about saving our physical vehicle. In other words, you're afraid to die. Okay? Some people say, most people would say, okay, look, yeah, I'm scared. I don't want to die. So tell me how I can survive. Okay? If you want to survive this electromagnetic war that they're waging with HAARP and all this other crazy stuff, if you want to survive the pollution wars, if you want to survive the environmental wars, if you want to survive the food wars, okay, if you want to survive the terror wars, all these different wars they're throwing at us now at the same time, then one of the first and easiest things you can do is stop making yourself a nervous wreck. Okay? You can help do that a long way by getting all that junk out of your system. That's one of the things you can do right away. Easy, simple, cheap. You don't need to go to no shrink and no doctor to do that. In fact, I would encourage you to avoid the hospital as much as possible because they will kill you as fast as they can. All right? That's right. That's what hospitals are for, to make you sick. So I would urge you to get into some serious herbs. I don't know how many herb stores there are in New York City, but I would encourage you to find out. I would even encourage Bert to start maybe doing some survival emergency lectures just on where to go to find these places and what kind of questions to ask when you go in there. Because you need to start getting into these stores, wherever they are. I would encourage you first to try to find the African-American stores if they exist here. I'm sure a few of them are here. And then if you can't find them or they don't have the products, then go to some other places. Clyde's been taking me around to some of these places and showing me some of them. There's a few of them around, okay? You need to burn the midnight oil to find out where they're at. The reason why the herbs are important for two reasons. We'll go back to Schauberger. This nutty German scientist. This is some really weird stuff, you know. But some of the stuff, regardless of how difficult it is to comprehend, you have to burn the oil to try your best to understand what's going on here with these people because they're on the fast track toward getting out of here if they can't survive here, okay? So we need to be on the fast track to beating their game. Like I said before, you got to learn to play the end game. That's the best game in chess is the end game. You know, when you have a whole lot of pieces on the board, that's cool. You can sock it out and knock each other down on the chessboard all day long. Any amateur can play chess. Anybody can get on the chessboard and move the pieces around and knock each other off. It's the end game that proves the real chess players from the fake chess players. It's the end game. Because that's when you only get two pieces on the board. You got your man and their man. And it's the one who has the best strategy in terms of how to use that equal weight, okay, to capture the other piece and win the game. The end game. You got to learn how to play this end game because the white folks right now into end strategy. That's why they run around talking this stuff end time, because they're trying to send you the message that this is over with for you. Okay? They qualify that. They qualify the end by saying the end is over for you, not for them. So they think they got the end game figured out. So what you need to do is go back to people like Schauberger and find out what did he say about these trees. Okay? And Schauberger talked about the electromagnetic connection between the trees and the human body and the earth. Now, geodetic science, and as Brother Bobby said, you know, now they've come up with this whole newfangled thing called quantum. I keep talking about quantum. You need to understand what quantum is. Quantum is the new physics. Quantum is the physics that has displaced the old physics. They done took all that old stuff and threw it at you. Like Bobby said, it's a very good statement that he made. They done gave you physics because they done went to quantum physics. Okay? In other words, they done went from 20th century physics into 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 26th century physics. All right? And that's what Preston Nichols is writing about in all his books on Montauk. That's what all that stuff was about when him and Al Bielek and all those people was running around talking about the Philadelphia experiment, when they was running around talking about Montauk and all that stuff they did up there on Long Island. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about quantum physics, the new physics, okay, that goes beyond all the laws and all the order that they have. Now they're into chaos, okay, and they use chaos to try to get to the spirit world. That's their leap. So they're trying to make that leap from what we call the real world and what they are trying to comprehend as the spirit world. And that's why they run around talking to all these shamans now. That's why they got Bill Moores and Campbell and all these other freaks running around the planet trying to find these people and giving them trinkets to give up secrets, all right? Because they're trying to crack these codes to the spirit world, okay? And that's what they call quantum. Now, Schauberger, 50 years ago, was into quantum before they even invented the word. There's a whole lot of these crazy white folks that was running around dealing with quantum physics long before they ever invented the term. Tesla was one of them. Tesla was the main one, in fact. And they killed him to shut him up, okay, because he went too far. He was inventing stuff that was way, 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 way into the future. And he got so far ahead of him that he started amassing power. The threat of being able to produce 25th, 26th century sciences was the reason why they had to kill this boy. So they sent the FBI into his bedroom and he come up dead, okay, in the 1950s. Just like Albert Einstein also came up dead. Now they say he was an old man, so he died a natural death. But, you know, at the same time Einstein died is when he started doing this. Einstein went from this to this. And when he did this, he died. Okay? All right, y'all stretching in the back. Einstein went from the linear theories of time to the curved theory of time. Okay? In other words, he was able to use Tesla's work and Schauberger's work and some of these Nazi scientists, von Braun, the guy that did the rocketry for Hitler, and then they brought him over here to set up the NASA program. Okay? He took all that stuff and he was able to show that time don't exist because it bends. Okay? And as a result of that, they found out that matter don't exist either because it's based on space and space is based on time and all that stuff is phony. So therefore, if they wanted to get into space, they had to chuck all that. All right? They had to chuck all that. They had to take all that linear stuff and throw it out the window. Okay? The problem is that these people are linear. Their DNA is linear. The white man's DNA is linear. If they try to go holistic, this is what's going to happen. They're going to break up. They're not going to be able to stand it. See, when you see a jet aircraft go a certain Mach, okay, they go 1 Mach, 2 Mach, 3 Mach, 4 Mach, 5 Mach, 6 Mach. If they go past a certain Mach or a certain speed, what happens to the ship? It explodes. It will break up, the rivets will come out of that ship one by one as it picks up speed, and that ship will disintegrate into nothing. Okay? White folks do the same thing. No. This is physics. White folks are linear. Everybody done heard that before. White folks are now trying to jump from the linear into the holistic. That's why they got Campbell and all the crazy people out there in the bush. Because they know that our scientists are the shamans, the Obeah men. So they're in the bush now trying to go from this to this. When they talk about the photon belt, this is what they really mean. This is what they really mean. They are trying to make the jump from the white world to the black world. That's what they're trying to do. They're not going to tell you that's what they know the photon belt is all about.
White man can't jump.
That's right.
On that note, we'll change the tape.
We got to change the
Can we
tape.
change the tape here?
All right, look, while we're changing the tape,
Please don't say nothing.
no, I'm just going to advertise. I want to make an advertisement while we're changing the tape. All right? I want you to come up here, little girl. But get this magazine, Sedona. Get this magazine, Sedona, because It's a very good magazine. It's very esoteric. It's difficult to figure out. Sometimes you got to read the stuff 2 and 3 times to figure it out, because it ain't no black writers in here. They all Europeans, okay? But they talk about a lot of black stuff. There was one white boy in here a couple of months ago who talked about the stuff on Mars, how that was built by the Twa. Yeah. Okay? So you need to get these kind of magazines, because even though they look like they're irrelevant, that they're corny, they talk about our secrets. You won't find no government scientists talking about no Twa on Mars, even though Richard Hoagland has already proved that the pyramids on Mars were built to the exact mathematical specifications of the Giza Plateau. Did y'all know that? The pyramids on Mars are built to the exact mathematical specifications of the Giza Plateau, just like the pyramids in Mexico are too. Just like the pyramids in China are too. All these major pyramid sites around the world and all these major grid points are all built to the specifications of Giza, even the ones on Mars. And now, thanks to this guy, David Hatcher Childress, who's been writing a whole series of books. He's another one of these guys that run around with Bill Moores and Joe Campbell. And all he do is dig, 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 dig. He spent all his time, spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, dig, 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 dig. How much time I got, Bert?
Half an hour.
You sure now?
Well, 15 minutes.
Damn, thought you would have said 35 minutes. But get this, because those kind of secrets are in here, okay? So the Brother Blase has this magazine. He'll have it available on a regular basis. This comes out once a month, okay? Now, another one of the books is this book. This is one of my favorites. This is David Hatcher Childress' book, Anti-Gravity. This is a very, very, very difficult book to get, okay? He talks about people like Bruce Cathay, okay? One of the white boys who stumbled into this grid stuff was a white boy named Bruce Cathay, who was from Australia. He was an Australian commercial pilot who happened to notice one day on one of his runs around the continent of Australia that he was missing certain types of gauge registrations. There are certain registrations on his gauges in his plane that wasn't making no sense. They was jumping back and forth and back and forth in ways that it wasn't supposed to be jumping. And this went on for months and months and months and months. And then finally he deduced that he was entering some kind of a portal. In other words, there was some kind of a space in the clear blue air that had no logic in terms of physical laws. Okay? And he also found something else out. He found that every time he jumped into one of these portals with his airplane, a whole bunch of UFOs would pop in and out. So he started writing books about this stuff. And they called him crazy at first. But as a result of Bruce Cathay, there's a place in Arizona, in Australia now called Pine Gap. Anybody ever heard of it? There's a place called Pine Gap at grid point number 44 in Australia, okay, where they have built a base that is identical to Delsey Base in Nevada. Identical to Dreamland in Nevada. They built this at this place called Pine Gap as a result of Bruce Cathay's experiments and his revelations off the coast of Australia. Okay, and some of the stuff they're doing down there is real heavy. And I know that the government gets all these tapes, unfortunately, and they analyze all this stuff, and they say, damn, here go that nigga again, talking that stuff. He's not supposed to be talking, right? But again, I said, I put my trust in my ancestors. They call the shots on this. So I'm not scared to talk about it. But anyway, David Hatcher Childress got Bruce Cathay's stuff, and he put it in his book. And a whole lot of other stuff, too. There's some real esoteric stuff in this book. Get this book. It's only $14.95. You can get this book also by from Brother Blase. This picture on the front, by the way, is one of the grid maps that they deduced as a result of Cathay's work and some white folks that's here in this country. Okay, there's a white woman up in Maine and a white boy in Illinois who worked with Cathay to produce this map. And this is one of the world grid maps that they produced in terms of the locations of some of these portholes that exist in the surface of the earth. And they have actually been able to use these portholes to make movies like Stargate and Close Encounters, because as a result of the kind of work they've done, now they're starting to tell you what they have found through Hollywood. They don't tell you direct. They don't ever do that. They tell you through Hollywood. Okay? In other words, they're illusionists. White people are illusionists. And they use illusions to tell you what they really mean. So what they do is they go to Hollywood, because Hollywood is the kingdom of illusion. Okay? So that's why I'm saying every time you see a Hollywood movie come out, if they say it's science fiction, it's probably science fact. Okay? Like I said with the news reports, whenever you see them smile, consider it a disaster. Whenever you see them frown, it's a home run for black folks somewhere. Okay?
That gnosis gives them Castaneda.
Oh, you got Castaneda? Oh, Gnosis? Oh, yeah, this is another magazine that, another one of these little weird ones. Yeah, they have Castaneda. Castaneda is one of these oddball white boys who wrote a whole series of books called, what?
Don Juan.
Don Juan, what? Teachings of Don Juan. And it's very, very esoteric material. I never read Castaneda for years and years and years, even though people was proud of me for over a decade to read him. I didn't read him because he was white. But then I found out that you cannot use racial feelings to block out information. Okay? You can hate the whitey all you want. That's fine. All right? No problem. Because we have some damn good justification for hating them. But that don't give you justification for denying yourself access to the information. Get the information. They do that to us. They in the bush. They got Campbell. They got David Hatcher Childress. They got Bill Moores. They got all these people in the bush talking about our secrets. So we need to do the same. You know, you fight fire with fire. Okay, so go and dig out their secrets. All right? So go and get these little weird magazines. Gnosis is another one of these things. Okay, this is the winter one for 1997, where they talk about reincarnation, for example. Okay, they talk about Castaneda's The Sorcerer's Way by Castaneda. Okay, Castaneda had went down to New Mexico and Arizona and dug up this Yankee Indian called the Yankees. And the guy's name that he put in the book was Don Juan. The guy's code name was Don Juan. And this Native American from Arizona taught the Spanish white boy, he's a white boy from Spain, right? A white boy from Spain, some of the secrets, some of the esoteric secrets, okay, that the natives knew down in the Southwest Desert. Now, it's very interesting that Castaneda wrote this whole series of books, okay, based on information that he got from Don Juan, who came from Arizona, because Arizona is the site of what the white folks call grid point number 17. It's one of the major grid points, okay, on the planet, okay, and that's why they made the movie Close Encounters of a Third Kind, okay, and if you get this book here, they have the layouts and the maps of grid point number 17, okay. The major one on this continent is a thing they call grid point number 18, which is the Bermuda Triangle, okay, but the other major one is in the Arizona desert, and that's where the Hopi live, and that's where the Navajo live. And the reason why the Hopi and the Navajo lived there, and the reason why the white folks never tried to take their land away from them, even though they took all the other land, is because that land out there is so hot they don't want to touch it. That's the truth. That stuff out there is so hot they don't want to touch it. They leave it alone. Because they know that those Native Americans are serious, no pun intended, when they went to them crackers and said, I dare you. I dare you. Take it. Go ahead, take it. And see what happened to you. Okay? So the X-Files tried to tell you. If you study the X-Files, which they are now trying to get off the air, they are now trying to get the X-Files off the air, okay? Because it's too much. It's too much coming out. Okay? I'm not the only one doing this. You got Fox, Mulder doing it too. Okay? They're telling secrets about their desert, so they had a show on there. You remember, they had the show about the Indians in the desert. They had the show about the Indians in the desert. Some of y'all blew that. Get the tape. Yeah, the bodies and some of the other stuff that's going on in that desert that they got buried down underneath that sand. Okay, and why the FBI was running around trying to assassinate people in that desert. Because they don't want people out there knowing what the Indians know and what they're sitting on top of. They're not worried about that uranium out there or that cobalt. They're worried about what the Minions got in terms of knowledge of those portals. So they went the roundabout way and they said, okay, look, we can't mess with these people, so what we'll do is we'll make this movie called Close Encounters of a Third Kind. And we'll tell everybody exactly what's out there, but we'll leave them to figure it out. See, when they make these movies, they make them as jigsaw puzzles. Just like absolute power. Absolute power. Go and see that. They talk about the assassination of Vincent Foster by Hillary Clinton. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They talk about the assassination. Yeah, I put it on camera. Because I didn't make the movie. Hollywood did, all right? Yeah, you can shake if you want. A little camera shaking over here. No, they made a movie about Bill Clinton and his wife, his lovely little wife, assassinating Vincent Foster to cover up Whitewater. Okay? Kenneth Starr's back on the job, though, isn't he? He's back on the job, isn't he? Made a U-turn on that job, didn't he? Because they told him, you'll find you at the bottom of the Potomac if you don't go back. That's what they told Kenneth Starr. But just because you did turn tail and went back and apologized to the whole world on public TV for quitting your job, will give you $1 million once you hang Clinton.
What happened to Ron Brown?
Okay? We can't get into all that stuff, but Ron Brown went into the esoteric path. Okay? That was the esoteric thing. That was the satanic piece. Okay? See, Ron Brown made the same mistake Cosby made. Okay? Ron Brown tried to play with the big boys. He tried to play the same game as the big boys, and you see what happened to him. He wound up on the side of a mountain. Okay? You can't do that. In this country, you can't do that. You know, they had a law before emancipation, they had a law that said what? 3/5? Remember that? Remember that? They said 3/5. And there were some states that said if you had as much as 1/16 of black blood, you're a nigger. No, that's law. That was law. That was law in the South. If you had 1/16, which means I can't pass. All right? They said 1/16 and you can't pass. Okay? So these people are serious about this stuff, about, you know, keeping things in place. But getting back to Fox Mulder and all the X-Files stuff, there are certain types of people that are leaking this stuff out. That's why I got to get stuff like this, because they leak stuff out in magazines like this. Okay? To get this stuff. Notice the magazine, just like this other one here, you can find this in most bookstores. This brother here, Blase, will have this magazine. They'll have a whole bunch of other ones, but this is one of the other ones. Okay? Now, this is one of the other books that deals with the grids. Okay? This white boy is very interesting. Here's another one of these white boys. Okay? With David had the children that go romping and stomping around the planet called Paul Devereaux. Okay? And he wrote a whole bunch of books. There's only one of them called Places of Power, where he talks about the grid points and the portals, right? And all this so-called ancient sacred science. These white boys are writing books a mile a minute now, making all kind of money off these ancient sciences, again, because they're trying to get out of here. They're trying to find a way to get out of here, right? And that's one of the reasons why they're going to the Dogon and to the Ashanti and to the Zulu. They got this other white boy named J.J. Hurtak. Anybody ever heard of him? J.J. Hurtak is a white boy from California who used to work for Stanford Research Institute. He do the remote viewing piece now, okay? In other words, he do mind reading exercises now was doing it for the military, now he's doing it for his own institute, okay? Where he went running all over South Africa for a long time, and he got with the Zulu, and he made films of the little black kids that was talking to the ETs, okay, and brought that stuff back over here. Okay, and then he was so fascinated by it that he went over to Harvard University. See, these whiteys are really slick. He went over to Harvard University and he found this other boy named John Mack. And him and John Mack went on back down to South Africa and got back with them Zulus again. And they talked to them little black kids and found out that the ETs was teaching class. Oh, yeah. The ETs was teaching class in the little black schoolroom. And they put the little black kids, any of y'all ever seen that film? John Mack made it, huh? You seen it? John Mack made a film about it. Him and J.J. Hurtak. I don't even know the name of it. But we're trying to get a hold of John Mack now up at Harvard. He don't talk. He don't talk. He won't talk to us. We're trying to get the cracker to talk. He won't talk. But he went down there with J.J. Hurtak, who wrote Keys to Enoch. Keys to Enoch. Okay, about all his pyramid secrets. Okay, they went rushing on down to South Africa to talk to the Zulu, and it's very interesting. I don't want to talk about the grids today, but they went down to South Africa to talk to them Zulu because they know that them Zulu was sitting right on top of a major grid point. And they know that when them Zulu talk about Mars, they know what they're talking about. When the Zulu talk about Mars, they're not fooling around. So they went down there and talked to them shamans in that desert out there, okay? They went to Durban and Zululand, and they sat down and took all this camera equipment down there and put all that stuff on film and talked to them shamans, and the shamans told them about the black dot and about the black hole and about the relationship between the black dot and the black hole and those portals down there in South Africa. And this is, again, one of the reasons why they make these movies like Stargate, because they're trying to tell you about the research. See, because they got leaks all over the place. Hollywood leaks just like the Pentagon do, just like the White House do. It leaks like a sieve. And all you got to do is get your ear close enough. You can pick up almost anything you want out of it. There's no such thing as a top secret. Bobby said it, no such thing as a secret. There's no such thing as a top secret either. In fact, the top secrets get released first, ahead of the secrets. Okay? And anything you want to know, you can buy it damn near on the street. Okay? All you got to do is know the right people. And they put this stuff out. They put it out all over the place in the form of movies, in the form of books, magazines, graphs, charts, you name it. They put it out there, word of mouth, on the street. And they tell you what they're doing. So that's why I keep telling people over and over and over again, Stargate was real. You think it's a joke. They don't spend 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars on a film like that. Look at the PR alone that they spent on Stargate. Look at the PR alone. They spent at least $3, $4, $5 million just on the PR for that movie. And the movie grossed at least $20, $30 million in the first week. In the first week. Okay? Because they're trying to tell you, then they put out a series of books to back it up, to tell you what they're doing. It ain't no joke. Science fiction is science fact. You know, what they tell you is the fact is the fiction, what's the fiction is the fact. That's the truth. Okay, here's another little one. I was talking about this yesterday, and Bobby mentioned this today. Fatima Prophecy is another one of these little books that talks about some of the spooky stuff they've been doing in relation to Hell Bob. Now, Hell Bob isn't mentioned in this book because this book here is about 15 years old by Ray Stanford. But it does tell the story about how the Catholics was all fighting each other to try to hide up these so-called secrets. But like I said yesterday, and Bobby said today, the secrets got out anyway. They had 1, 2, 3 secrets about Fatima that was given to them by the apparition of the so-called light in Fatima, Portugal, in 1917. Okay, and the secrets were taken to the Pope, and the Pope damn near died of a heart attack when he read the secrets, because one of the secrets was about the destruction of the Catholic Church at the end of this century. Okay. That helps to usher in the new age. In other words, some of these beasts got to get off the planet before the planet will free itself up. And some of the main beasts are in the Vatican. Okay? And like Bobby said, they perpetrated this fraud about Jesus Christ, and some of the main perpetrators right there at that Vatican. And like I said before, yesterday, you know, that Pope that we got now is a real dangerous man. That's a real wacko, sicko man we got in there. Because at the same time, that guy's talking all that junk about, you know, Christian love and compassion, he's over there selling guns to them Croats to kill the Muslims. The same guy who met with Ronald Reagan when that Yugoslav war was going on, he secretly met in Slovenia to arm the Slovenian Catholics and the Croat Catholics against the Serbian Muslims. And that's why you had all this ethnic cleansing over there and all these huge, gigantic mass graves over there, is because of the Pope. And that was that same dirty, stinking Pope that was selling gas to the Nazis during World War II and killed up all them Jews. And then he ran to the Catholic Church and put a collar around his neck to cover his crimes. Oh, yeah, that's the truth. And then they put out a book called In God's Name that talked about how the same people that put this Pope in, and they had to knock off that other Pope to clear the way. In God's Name, get the book. I'm not talking fiction. I'm talking what's in the books. Okay?
Also Godfather 3.
Godfather 3? Right. Now here's another little book, The Cult of the Black Virgin. This is a very interesting book. Very fascinating little book. Written by a Jesuit priest named Ian Begg, B-E-G-G. And this book's been out about 15 years now. It talks about very fascinating thing that's going on in Europe. It's been going on in Europe for about 1,000, maybe 1,500 years now. If you go to Europe, anybody here been in any of the cathedrals in Europe? Okay. If you go to Europe, especially in France and places like Poland, you will find that many of the oldest churches in Europe are decorated with statues of black virgins. That's right. And there are thousands of these black virgins in all these churches in Europe. Now, some of the priests get up and say, and some of the historians will say, well, that's soot. That's soot from the candles. They say it's dust from the ages, you know, covering up these statues, you know. But in one case, at least one case that's documented in this book, the Europeans got so mad at seeing this black virgin, they ran into the church and they snatched the statue and they painted it white. You remember the story I told you before? How many of y'all heard the story before? All right. Since so few people heard it before, let me tell it again. It's a fascinating story. Where in one of these churches, the crackers got so mad at seeing this black thing up there on the altar, they called it sacrilege. They ran in there one day and grabbed the thing, pulled it down, and they started painting it white. So they put it back up there and they went home happy. Then they came back the next day and guess what?
Black.
It was black. So they pulled it down, they ran out and they painted it white again and they stuck it back up and they said, well, you know, I don't know who pulled that prank, but at least we got it white again. So they came back the next day and guess what? It was black again. And every time they painted it, it turned black again. They couldn't figure it out. And to this day, that statue is still in that church in southern France. And to this day, they can't figure out how the paint got off. But every time they try to stick something on that statue, it turned black. And there's all kinds of cases in here where some of these Europeans even went to war against, there was whole wars in Europe over these black statues. Because these 33rd degree pluses know the real deal. That's not Mary, that's Ma. It's not Mary. It's Ma, reflecting the principle of Ma'at. That's what Bobby was talking about. You know, some of these Europeans know the real deal. We don't. We don't. We don't know nothing about this kind of stuff. If we see a black statue in a church, we say, damn, clean the soot off. No, that's how sick we are as a people. You know?
They also had on one of those grottos where they took the Madonna out. The church took her out and replaced her with a white statue. The people refused to worship her. They stopped going.
Right. Well, that's happened all over the country, and all over the world, where you had these black statues. You had these strange anomalies going on, and it shows the power of the black dot. See, that goes back to the Kaiser record that we've been talking about, that we've been trying to tell you about. You know, we are much, much more powerful people than we even care to believe, because our power is not limited to the physical vehicle. Our power is universal power. Our power is the power of the whole entire universe. We have the power. Right now we have the power to call down any force in the universe to come here and deal with these people. All we got to do is ask. But we're so Western-oriented that we don't understand that we got this power in us. That's why Richard King and all these other people running around the planet now trying to scream and yell at the top of their lungs talking about the black dot and the connection between the black dot and the black hole. Everybody's talking about this stuff now, but people don't believe it. You believe in white dot. Now, getting back to this stuff here, Schauberger, where's my time at? Who's my time?
Get an hour.
That's the lie. All right, I want to get back to Schauberger. Schauberger talked about the relationship between the electromagnetic frequency, okay, and the electromagnetic frequency of the herbs and the trees, and the electromagnetic frequency of the human being, and the electromagnetic frequency of the planet, and how all those frequencies interrelate with each other and link up just like in a chain, okay? And that's one, and he was able to prove his theory by producing a type of machine that almost won the war for the Nazis. So the guy couldn't have been no stupid fool. He was on to something big, okay? And Schauberger was able to show through his research with the water and the plants that there is an intrinsic connection between us and the herbs. It's not just a physical thing. I've heard people say, well, you don't have to deal with herbs because, you know, herbs are a sometime thing that might help you at some times and might not help you at other times. And in any event, the government's going to take them all away sooner or later, so you better find another way to survive, which is coming down the pike. Because in Europe right now, they're eliminating herbs. Did y'all know that? In Europe right now, there are laws being passed and enforced by who? WHO, the World Health Organization, to eliminate the sale of herbs in European stores. In Norway and Scandinavia, 80% of the herbal stores have been shut down. That is coming here. The FDA tried it. They could not get away with it, so now they're going a step higher. They went to WHO. They turned it over to WHO, the enforcement mechanism, because the herbal industry in this country is so big now that the FDA couldn't stop them. Some of y'all know this? Some of y'all keep track of this? Okay. So what they have done, that's right, they tried to stop them and the FDA got shot down. So what they did was real slick. They went and turned the case over to WHO, WHO. The same organization that's been spreading AIDS and smallpox and malaria all over the world, okay? These are the same people that are now in the process of shutting down herbal stores all over the world because they know what Schauberger was talking about 50 years ago, okay? That there's an intrinsic electromagnetic connection between your body, your spirit, and herbs. That's why herbs are not just a physical thing. When you get healed by the herbs instead of the allopathic medicine that the doctors teach you in the deaf institutes, that is because of a frequency connection. There is a there is a physics connection here that deals with herbs. So when you look at those little green plants, you know, when you see these herbs, you know, they look like some innocuous, innocent little green, dead little green leaf, or a root, or a stem. That's only the surface. What you don't see is the most important thing to your life. So you need to deal with herbs in an esoteric method. Just like they deal with sciences in the esoteric method now in terms of quantum, you need to start dealing with herbs. In other words, you need to start getting real about herbs. And you need to start studying the herbs in a real serious conscious way so that you can learn to ingest them properly so that you can get maximum power out of them. Because the plant can only relate to you as you relate to it. A plant will only talk to you if you talk to it. I knew a preacher who lived around the corner from me who used to grow squash as big as that TV. And the white boys in Maryland who used to have their farms next to him hated this man with a passion because he would never share the secret. And their little squashes was like this. And they said, who the hell is this nigga to be coming in here growing squash that make our squash look bad? And the preacher told me the secret one day. He said, I sing to my plants. I sing to my plants. So there is a direct electromagnetic connection between us and the mineral world and the plant world. And that is why you really have to deal with herbs whether you like it or not. Because there is a causal connection in terms of the karmic cycle, the reincarnational cycles, because at one time, believe it or not, you was a tree. What? Did you hear what I said? I said at one time you was a tree. Each and every single one of you was a tree at one point, and before that you was a mineral. What? I'll say it again. Does anybody need me to say it again? I said at one time every single person in here was an animal, and before you was a four-legged animal, you was a crawling creature, and before you was and even Darwin said that much. Even Darwin said you crawled on the ground, right? And before he said that, okay, there was others who said that everybody comes from the plants. Who said that? Who taught that? Who taught that?
George Washington Carver.
Well, he was one of them talking about the relationship between plants and humans. Okay. But the Native Americans always talk about that. You go to the Hopi, the Navajo, the Cherokee, the Iroquois, any of them native nations, they will tell you about the causal relationship between the trees and the human beings. And they will tell you that whenever they had to go to trees to cut them down to make a boat, that's right. They had to ask permission. Ask permission. So you better get serious about these herbs. Whether or not the crackers fight us and try to shut the shops down, you still got to get serious about these herbs. And if the crackers try to shut the shops down, you got to go to war. You got to go to war because by cutting off the herbs, what they're really trying to do is kill you. They're trying to kill you because they're trying to separate the connection between you and your past. Now, one other thing quick, and then we got to stop. Bert's giving me my notice. You also had to learn to meditate to get this garbage off your back. There's a lot of psychic poisoning going on right now. There's a psychic war going on in this country. That's what HAARP is all about. Psychic poisoning through the electromagnetic spectrum. Like Bobby said, they're trying to wage a spiritual war now. They done got past the physical, and now they're into the esoteric. What you don't see is where they're waging the war at. Okay? That's how they're going to try to hit you on the blind side, and part of that war involves HAARP. Okay? That's why Antarctica is breaking up now. Okay? Because the planet is mad because the planet is getting zapped and whacked by this HAARP thing. Okay? So the planet is showing us anger, so it's breaking up Antarctica to flood all these cities out, to teach you a lesson and don't mess with it. And even though a lot of innocent people are going to die, they're going to die because the planet is saying, you ain't fighting them, so I'm going to kill you too. You just as guilty as the guilty party because you ain't trying to stop it. So I'm going to flood all your cities out, wash you all away. All right? But you need to start getting, okay, with the meditational piece. You need to start meditating so you can get in direct contact back with your original spirit and with your ancestors. You tighten up the relationship between you and the ancestors through meditation. That's one of the reasons why you do meditation. You also do meditation to calm yourself down, get a grip on yourself. Meditation helps you get a grip on yourself.